Hey, folks. Today's episode brought to you by my favorite sponsor, sunsetlakesebede.com. Use the code LEFTISBEST. You will get 20% off. 20% off what, Sam? Well, it could be all their assortment of gummies. This is their sleep gummies. It has melatonin. They've just reformulated it. This is their focus gummies. It has cordyceps in it and lion's mane as well as CBD. But they have a relax gummies. They have a little bit with THC. They have all sorts of great gummies with CBD, but they also have tinctures. They have my favorite, the Good Night Oil, which puts me to sleep every night and keeps me asleep. And I think it's the CBN in it, but I'm not sure. They also have smokables. They have pre-rolls and keef. They have flower and bud. They have CBD coffee, and they have CBD fudge. And the best part about it, what I love about these guys, is they are movement partners. They have donated thousands upon thousands of dollars to things like strike relief funds, to refugee resettlement, to carceral reform, to mutual aid in the wake of the floods up in Vermont, where they're from, food pantries. I mean, on and on. Great folks up there, up in Bernieville, around Burlington. They also have great farming practices, integrated pest management. They use no pesticides in their growing of their CBD, and they also use regenerative farming practices, plus great business practices, $20 minimum wage, mostly employee owned. You cannot go wrong. Great company, great product, all third-party tested, and you can look at that on their website. Check it out, sunsetlakesebede.com. Use the coupon code LEFTISBEST, and you will get 20% off. And now, time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, May 24th, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Jeet Heer, national affairs correspondent for The Nation magazine. Meanwhile, also on the program, the ICJ, International Court of Justice, has ruled that Israel must halt its Rafah offensive.
And Israel responded by bombing.
And in the wake
Rafah.
of that ruling, Israel intensifies its bombing of Rafah. Meanwhile, in this country, the Supreme Court okay's South Carolina congressional map, which exiled 30,000 black voters to make a safe Republican seat. U.S. to announce $275 million more in munitions and artillery for Ukraine. It's the 4th installment following that congressional aid package. So they're doling that out in installments. UCLA workers to join UC Davis workers striking over the handling of Gaza protests. Meanwhile, lawmakers call for Alito to recuse himself. As Dick Durbin says, they're powerless, though. Louisiana bill classifying abortion pills as a controlled substance, now just waiting for its governor's signature. It's imminent. Meanwhile, Governor Newsom signs a law to allow Arizona doctors abortion privileges in California. Senate border deal fails again as migrant crossings are down 54% from December. Mike DeWine calls a special Ohio legislative session to force his ridiculous Republican colleagues to allow Joe Biden to be on the ballot for the presidential elections. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is a casual Friday.
Yes, it is.
And also, I just want to note, first time I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt in ages.
Well, it's getting warm out.
Seasons.
That's all I've got.
Yep, it is. It is definitely getting warm out.
That was all I have to say.
It's getting warm out. That was, Yep.
Astute observation by me.
Yes, well done. Very well done. We will talk about the Celtics later in the program, I'm sure. But we got a lot to get to. I got thrown off by the May 24, 2024. I don't know why.
It's a lot of 24s in a row.
Yeah, it's a lot of 24s. We're obviously going to be talking a lot about this ICJ ruling. It is a big deal. It's also coming, in the wake of the ICC at The Hague, starting its process to issue or attempt to issue warrants for the arrests of top Israeli and Hamas leaders. That process is still ongoing. But this ICJ thing, and we'll talk more about it with Jeet here, but it's essentially like like enjoining, if you will. When a court basically steps in and says, we want you to stop doing what you're doing.
I mean, no enforcement power, as people are pointing out, but that's not really the point in the sense that it's more just about being yet another kind of weight in terms of pressure to put on the Biden administration in particular.
The Biden administration in particular, but I also would imagine that it is going to be, I suspect, and I don't know this for a fact, but my guess would be that there is also provisions within various countries' own statutes that such a ruling found by the ICJ and maybe just international courts in general become the basis for things like embargoes or sanctions or whatnot. And obviously the United States is probably the most important player when it comes to those things. And we don't have such provisions in our federal law that I'm aware of.
Right.
I don't even know that we actually even consider the ICJ to have jurisdiction. But in terms of what it's going to mean to other countries, and in terms of what signal it sends to Israelis, it is an important development. And we'll talk more about that with Jeet. But let's check in on Donald Trump for a moment. My understanding is he is going to be the Republican nominee for president. He is also awaiting jury deliberations that will start on Monday on his criminal case. And he's been off. He doesn't have to show up in court since Tuesday. And so Thursday, he traveled all the way to the Bronx, maybe en route to his golf course.
Trump
I think he's
links
got one.
are in the Bronx.
Yep. To have a massive rally in the wake of that huge march, which involved 12 people the other day. I'm not being facetious about that. It may have been 20. And he follows it up with a rally. Look at the size of this. This picture was taken from space, actually.
Yes.
No, it was actually taken. I don't even know if they even had to use a drone to take a picture of this. That is maybe 5,000 or 6,000 people.
That was, we guessed 6,000 before the show. And it's, my guess is this is not a lot of people from the Bronx the actual Bronx. I mean, I'm sure some people took some trains down south from Westchester County, for example.
Yeah, or their cars. And I mean, honestly, I have seen bigger crowds in Prospect Park surrounding a band that is playing. And I'm not even saying like a scheduled band, like the half shell. I'm saying like, 3 musicians who decided to start playing because it was a nice day out.
Right.
But be that as
look
it
up
may,
the Bernie rally pictures.
Exactly.
you can't. Yeah, it's not even remotely close. I mean, I've been in Bernie rallies in Prospect Park, and also that one which launched his 2020 campaign, and that is literally a fraction, and by fraction I mean like a tenth.
I mean, Elizabeth Warren didn't even win a state in the 2020 primary, and I went to one of her rallies to cover in Washington Square Park, probably 3 or 4 times the size of that.
Now,
as
I don't
a primary
know.
candidate.
I don't know that you can get more people for Joe Biden either, but I'm somewhat surprised in terms of this with the Trump thing. Here is Donald Trump at that rally, being asked by a local news reporter who he's considering for VP. Now, there are interesting people because, like, I don't even know that Ben Carson had put his name in, for VP.
I'm sorry.
Just okay. We'll hold that, and we'll get to that thought afterwards. I know what you're going to say, but just imagine if you're being told one of the things that politicians do all the time when they're picking a vice president or nominees, they'll float names so that they're indicating to those constituencies, I would actually like. It's very possible I could pick your person, whomever they think those constituencies represent, as a way of signaling, like, I'm with you. So if I'm Bobby Kennedy, I say, like, well, maybe I'll pick, what's his face?
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers, because I want all of those anti-vax conspiracy people to know, like, we're simpatico, so much so that I may pick Aaron Rodgers. That's what's being signaled here. And it's a very, very good indication to me that he's going to pick J.D. Vance. But go ahead, listen to this.
So if not Nikki, then who? Let's make some news tonight, you and I, for your hometown TV station. Share with me your top 3 candidates for your running mate at this point.
Well, we have so many. I don't want to do that, but we have so many. You could take people like Ben Carson. You could take people like Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance. I mean, there are so many. Elisa's doing a fantastic job. But I could go on for quite a long time. We have many people that would do a really fantastic job.
Do you have a timeline on when you'll make the decision?
I think sometime during the convention.
Okay.
I mean, so it gives you a sense of what he's saying. I just want everybody to know that I would consider a woman, and I would consider someone like Ben Carson. I can't remember the names of those people.
Elise.
Or like a Marco Rubio type.
Right.
Like a potential Latino. Of course,
Not a
that
little-
won't happen.
a little
And then
Marco.
J.D. Vance.
When's the last time Ben Carson has even really made a public appearance? I'm sorry, but there is I don't know what the percentage chance is, but a percentage chance he's confusing him with the other black guy.
Well, no, I think he's basically saying that someone like Ben Carson, someone who's sort of like Ben Carson
Ben Carson.
a Ben Carson type.
And I don't mean a brain surgeon.
And I don't mean a brain surgeon who seems like he's actually operated on himself recently.
No, I mean, let's be real here. The former head of housing and urban. Did you hear that part? Development. That's what he led as a surgeon. It was a totally, a pick that made total sense.
There you go.
So you think he's going to go with J.D. Vance, not Doug Burgum?
No, I don't think so.
Burgum is so unoffensive, but could maybe
Well, it
actually
could be someone
fund his
old
legal
like me,
bills.
like
Yeah.
Doug Burgum. No, I don't think so.
All right.
I think the idea is he needs to bring some youth, but also huge finance and right wing. And I also want a guy who's willing to supplicate himself. And I think JD's done it.
There you go. I think you might be right.
It's not going to be Ron. Ron went a little bit too far. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Jeet Heer about all that's gone on this week. Jeet wrote also, in addition to what he's been writing about Gaza, he wrote he actually wrote this 4 days ago. Impeach Sam Alito. Let's get those pictures of the flags up so that we have them handy for this conversation. But of course, we're going to talk to him about the ICJ ruling and some of the recent polling where we are on the presidential election. But first, a word from our sponsor. If supporting foundational health was a sport, you would want Ritual on your team. Why? They made Essential for Men, which is a multivitamin. It's based solely on science and designed to help fill common nutrient gaps in the diet with 10 key nutrients. I've been doing the Essential for Men for a long time now, actually. And I mean, for me, the big thing is that there's really two things that sold me on Ritual. One is that it was a subscription service, because my whole thing was like, my doctor was always like, yeah, start taking a multivitamin. And I would take it. I would go from the doctor's office. I would go to the drugstore, whatever it was, buy one, take them, not all at once, over the course of whatever it was, a month and a half. And then I'd run out, and then I would never do it again. And Ritual will mail these things to your door. And but the thing I really like about it as well is that it you know where the ingredients are coming from. It is made traceable, and they are vegan. They are non-GMO, project verified. They are gluten and major allergen free, and they're a certified B Corporation. So they have higher standards as the way they operate. It is a science-backed multivitamin for men 18 plus with high quality and, like I say, traceable key ingredients that are in clean, bioavailable forms. In other words, ways that the body can absorb them. It has 10 key nutrients. They have 2 delayed release capsules per day, which also reminds me, one of the things I like about it is they dissolve later in the small intestine, which is an optimal place to absorb nutrients, but it's also less harsh on your stomach. So if you forget to take them, or like for me, one of the problems also was always like, oh, I should take my vitamins. I haven't eaten anything. I'll wait. And then I forget. So you can take it as soon as you remember to take it, which is important for people who forget things like me. Ritual works with world-class certification bodies to validate their products. Ritual incorporates industry-leading sustainability standards as a certified B Corp. They use scientific tools to select lower carbon packaging, prioritize sustainably sourced ingredients, and set ambitious climate goals. Ritual is a founded B Corp. And again, that means that they hold themselves to accountable, not just for their company's financial health, but also the health of people and our planet. Essential for Men is a quality multivitamin from a company you can actually trust. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/majority. Start Ritual or add Essential for Men to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/majority, 25% off. We'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. And also, that Jeet is coming on reminds me, I am going to go on the Nation Magazine cruise again, like I did last year. And it's a week in December, and you can join me.
So jealous.
Well, you can't join.
I know,
but
others can. Yeah,
others can.
Bhaskar.
Bhaskar is going to be on the cruise. Exactly. In fact, here's a list of the speakers: Katrina vanden Heuvel, John Nichols, Sasha Abramsky, Bhaskar Sankara is going to be on it. Jeet's going to be on it. Ellie Mistel, Christina Gear, Eddie Souffrant, Joan Walsh, and myself. And a bunch of other, readers of the Nation Magazine. We've had, last time I was on there, those, Majority Report listeners. Check it out. It's December 8th to the 15th of 2024. And where are we going?
Is it a Caribbean cruise?
It's the Cozumel, Mexico, the Cayman Islands. That's where I'll be dropping off a lot of the Majority Report funds.
Cash.
And
You and Menendez.
Ocho Rios in Jamaica.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm
Go
jealous.
out for a day. I'm actually pretty excited about this. I was nervous about going on a cruise.
Yeah.
And then I loved it. I like being on the ocean.
Yeah. My grandparents took me
The
on a
air,
cruise.
like I kept the door open the whole time.
That is nice. Fresh air.
Yep.
I read Moby Dick on a cruise. My grandparents took me on the Caribbean. It was amazing. I loved it.
You were on Moby Dick. What?
I read
read
Moby
it.
Dick
Oh.
while on a cruise.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that this time.
You were on theme.
I messed up last time I was on there because they had this like huge like cafeteria that's open all the time and it's good food. And I didn't know it
I
was
remember.
free.
Right.
And so like I was just waiting for dinner every night because I was,
Amazing.
I'm a little bit skimpy.
Now you're a veteran cruise goer.
Yeah.
Now you know you
You
can
have to
eat
go
on
hungry
them.
the whole time.
Yeah.
I got a pretty funny story about on Gopal, who like when he found out I didn't know that they were like the desserts were there, he like literally marched me down there. All right, we're gonna take a quick break and we'll be talking to Jeet Heer. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Pleasure to welcome back to the program national correspondent, national affairs correspondent for the Nation magazine, Jeet Heer. Jeet, welcome back.
Oh, it's always great to be on.
And I was just saying, we're going on a cruise together. We had done this last time. I guess it was a year. I don't know. It was in 2022, I think.
Yeah.
And we have a link where people can check it out, nationcruise.com/MR. But it was a fun time, and you bring your family this time.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a really fun time. You meet a lot of great people. It's good. There might be piracy. Might be icebergs. I will say I will keep you out of the lifeboat, Sam.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, women and children first, okay, buddy.
You know what shocked me on that? I have to just say, and then we can go on to talk about some other stuff. But there's a basketball court. There was a full-on basketball court outside.
Okay, but if you get motion sick, that would be my one fear. It's just too big for there to be any of that kind of thing.
Yeah, really?
No. It's actually like the boats go very slowly. It's very comfortable. Very little chance of Sam getting drunk and falling overboard, unfortunately.
That's right. Well, high chance of Sam getting drunk, but
Not the falling overboard part. Gotcha.
No. They have safeguards for that. That eventuality.
That's right. They tie a rope on me after 6 p.m. I get a little clamp on my back, and that's it. All right, let's talk about this. This is a big deal. The South Africa had head back to the ICJ, specifically in terms of Rafah. I mean, the International Court of Justice is deliberating on the question of whether Israel is guilty of perpetrating genocide. That is generally a long process. But what they can do is issue essentially what is a restraining order. It's a provisional measure, they call it. And this is the 4 elements that they have ordered Israel to take, or I should say measures Israel is ordered to take by the ICJ. 1, immediately halt its a military offensive and any other action in the Rafah governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. Maintain open the Rafah crossing for unhindered provision at scale of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance. 3, take effective measures to ensure the unimpeded access to the Gaza Strip of any commission of inquiry, fact-finding mission, or other investigative body mandated by competent organs of the United Nations to investigate allegations of genocide. 4, submit a report to the court on all measures taken to give effect to this order within 1 month as of this date of this order. This is a big deal, isn't it?
It's absolutely a big deal. Yeah, no, and I gotta say, first of all, hats off to the South Africans who have really pursued this and have really pushed this, and have like really been arguing that like international law applies to everybody. And I think there's a specifically African context to this, which is worth bearing in mind, which is that the various international courts, especially the ICC, have really gone after various African dictators and warlords who have committed war crimes, quite rightly. But there was a feeling in Africa that this is perhaps a double standard, that this is being used against Africa and would not be used for, let's say, client states of the United States. And I think South Africa is quite properly testing this, saying that, we believe that this has to be applied to Africa, but it has to apply to the whole world as well. And I think that context, that the world is willing to embrace human rights, is willing to embrace international law, but it has to be done fairly. It cannot be one system for the rich, another system for the poor.
There was a quote from the, I just want to make this clear. The ICJ is a function of the United Nations. The ICC is, as far as I know, is sort of independent out of the Hague.
Hague.
And the prosecutor, who is essentially applying to a group of judges in the ICC for these warrants to be approved, for arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant. And then Sinwar and 2 other, and Sinwar and 2 other top Hamas officials, said that literally said, a top U.S. official said to me, some people think it's Lindsey Graham, said, this is not for the Israelis. This is for Africa and Putin. I mean, well, there's reason to be suspicious of the
In fact, there was a German politician, I think a Christian Democrat, who said a very similar statement, and on the record, I think his name is out there, but he said that the ICC is not meant to apply for democratically elected governments, which, if you think about it, like a German saying that a democratically elected government cannot be held accountable for war crimes and genocide, that's a little bit troubling. If you know anything about the history of Germany, Google it, 1933, 1945.
Yes, see who won the elections at those times.
Right, that's right. I mean, that's why the whole democratically elected thing, I even made that point, particularly about how Hitler became chancellor through those formal kind of like democratic processes, right? I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not committing genocide just because you're a democracy, but this is in keeping with the Biden administration has decided, from a branding perspective, I think, to divide the world in between autocracies and democracies. That was something that he's made central to his foreign policy kind of pitch to the public, which is that we're going to support democracies versus autocracies versus dictators. And it's just not that clear, especially when you understand that Israel, again, militarily occupies over 3 million people in the West Bank who have no ability to vote for in the Knesset, and the people in the Gaza Strip, over 2 million people there as well. So it's not a democracy. It's just a Western state.
Well, also, like, Biden's whole foreign policy is based on trying to build this alliance system between Israel and Saudi Arabia against Iran. And like Saudi Arabia, like, I don't know if people Google it. Not a democracy, although Google is garbage now. But also, like, this actually may be worth mentioning. Like, I don't think it got enough attention, but there's been court filings now by sort of, the victims of 9/11 against the Saudi regime, which make very clear, based on FBI documents, that the Saudi government was much more complicit on 9/11 than we had previously thought, that there were Saudi government agents in the United States that were facilitating the hijackers and Al-Qaeda agents to basically carry out 9/11. So this is a bipartisan foreign policy. Both Trump and Biden believe this, that we have to get a military alliance with Saudi Arabia. American troops will have to die on behalf of Saudi Arabia. And the ultimate goal is to make Saudi Arabia the nation that was most responsible for 9/11 a nuclear power. Now, maybe I'm crazy, but to me, that does not seem like a good policy and does not seem like a pro-democracy agenda.
Well, obviously not a pro-democracy, but it's also, I think even taken on their terms, look, we've never had, I think it's very hard to argue that the United States has actually had a legitimate pro-democracy foreign policy. It has always been, unless we don't like the person you elect, in which case, then we've got to go to plan B. But there's a piece actually that by Daniel Benjamin and Steve Simon in The Atlantic that outlines this 9/11 evidence. And it's entitled "New 9/11 Evidence Points to Deep Saudi Complicity." People might want to check that out. Maybe we'll.
Yeah, it hasn't been getting the attention it deserves. But I actually think that Saudi Arabia is a major American ally, and it's actually the cornerstone of Biden's foreign policies, supporting Saudi Arabia and Israel, in this alliance against Iran. And I have to say, if we know the degree of Saudi complicity with 9/11, people should be up in arms about this. This is
100%, 100%. And it also, and I keep coming back to this now, I guess the mainstream thought, or I should say maybe even the center left thought on the Iran nuke deal that Biden never closed and never re-upped in the wake of Donald Trump getting out of it. I think people have to reevaluate. I haven't seen anybody write a reevaluation as to Biden's failures on that front, because I'm starting to think that it was not a failure as much as that was the plan. That this is one thing that we're giving to the Saudis, essentially, in pursuit of sort of this access against Iran. This was one of the things on the table, and no one seems to have reassessed Biden's failure to re-up that nuke deal.
Yeah, I don't know. Biden has always been well to the right of Obama. And Obama's not my, foreign policy choice necessarily, but well to the right of Obama on foreign policy. And that was always a worry when Biden was going to become president, because presidents have a lot of leeway on foreign policy. And he is exactly pursuing, on the issue of this Abraham Accords and making Saudi Arabia and Israel the bulwark of American foreign policy, that I don't see much difference between Trump and Biden. I'm sorry to say this. I wish it were otherwise. The one person who is, I think, being more consistent on this is Bernie Sanders, who actually does make the democracy argument that Emma alluded to, but consistently, and says that, well, if we're pro-democracy, we cannot, we have to apply it to our allies as well as our enemies. But yeah, that's what to go back to the ICJ and ICC. It is the case that if the United States foreign policy is upholding international law, the rules-based international order, is it consistent or is it not? And that is one of the central contradictions of Biden's foreign policy, and we're seeing it play out right now. Biden has been willing to sacrifice so much for Israel, sacrifice, potentially his own reelection, sacrifice, but also America's reputation in the world, and this international law system that, I want people to understand this. This was a system that was created by the United States. This is the system that FDR and Truman pushed for in the 40s out of the wreckage of the most horrible war in human history and the vast evil of Nazism and Imperial Japan. They really pushed the idea that we need a strong, robust international law. And this is what American soldiers sacrificed for in World War II to create. And Biden is willing to destroy that on behalf of Israel.
I think I agree with you. I don't think that that last point can be emphasized enough. To have the U.S. undermine the ICC, because right now they're in negotiations apparently in the Senate about how they might sanction the ICC.
Insanity.
And to
they're threatening ICC judges. I mean, they're saying, you and your families will suffer for this.
It is the implications of this. And, one of the things that we spent a lot of time on this program over the course of 2016 to 2020, talking about the long-term implications of Donald Trump on our foreign policy, that other countries in the future could not look at the United States as a stable country in some way, because if they had the ability to go from Obama to Trump, maybe they have the ability to go from Biden to, I don't know, someone crazy like Trump. And
no. Well, it's not just to go from Obama to Trump, but Biden has absorbed Trump's foreign policy. I think that is something that people don't pay enough attention to.
And this frontal attack on these international institutions, then all of a sudden you're just basically left to, sort of pre-World War II, whoever's, we have no guardrails here. We have no mechanisms in which to resolve these things. You're undermining the UN dramatically. I think I don't think we can sort of overstate the importance of the United States not to undermine these international organizations. And I think Biden's going to, I think we're literally days away from seeing that full on undermining, because this is what gives all of the rogue elements that we supposedly don't want license to be there is no such thing as the ICC. There is no such thing as the ICJ. It's just acronyms.
Well, I mean, the Americans wanted the ICC to go after Putin, and they did. And now I think a large part of the world that is kind of sitting on the fence of a lot of these issues could rightly say, why should the ICC apply to Putin but not Netanyahu? What is the principle here? It is exactly undermining it. We're returning to the kind of rule of the jungle. It's a very dangerous, and these are all sort of precedents that were basically set up in 1945, and I can't emphasize this enough. Out of the horrors of the Second World War, this is why we wanted to create the UN. This is why we wanted to create this system of international law. It's a very dark kind of place, and one sees the world dividing between the sort of America and the sort of Atlantic Alliance, the sort of some of the West European countries, although even that's faltering. With Spain and Ireland and Norway recognizing Palestine, but and the rest of the world. I mean, the countries that recognize Palestine is basically everyone outside this Atlantic NATO bloc. And then the other example of this is Blinken, where a bunch of Arab activists talked to Blinken about the possibly, U.S. recognition of Palestine in the UN. And Blinken basically said, if we do that, we'll have global hunger, meaning that the United States will cut off foreign aid through the UN that helps feed people that are facing famine throughout Africa and Asia. So basically saying, on behalf of preserving Israel and the Israel exemption, you're willing to starve millions of people in the global South.
In fact, we have that clip, don't we? Let's play that clip right now.
It is incredible too. The clip on basically Blinken saying that thing about starvation. Yeah. This is I guess on Breaking Points. This was one of the Arab American leaders who met with Blinken here, and this is exactly what Jeet was alluding to.
And so when the topic of statehood got brought up, we had asked for both a free and independent Palestine, a statehood, and a seat at the UN Security Council table. And the response was disappointing because it made the comparison to, well, first and foremost, that a vote for a Palestinian statehood from the US would lead to the defunding of the UN from the US being its primary funder. But then the example brought up was that it would be within the right of the UN to then cut programs like the World Food Program. And so the fact that the comparison was made that the world would have to go hungry just like the Gazans are, and the fact that it's US policy to starve the world if Palestinians have a free state, regardless of if that's the law or not, is indicative of something severely wrong.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So Anthony Blinken said, we have to oppose Palestinian statehood or else the World Food Program budget will be cut and people will starve around the world. Like, that's the Secretary of State's assessment that he's making to you guys in this meeting?
The example was given that if the UN had to cut its funding, it would have to cut programs like the World Food Program. And that was the example shared, followed by the explanation that then the world would have to starve as the Gazans are. And so that is not the comparison you make to make an argument for why Palestinians should not have a free state.
That is just so jarring, obviously, and I know it disturbed the three of us for sure, but it's just also, one, the Biden administration is already engaging in starving people in a way that is retaliatory. On the day that the ICJ ruled Israel was plausibly committing genocide and took the case up, they listened to now proven false, basically, Israeli claims that staffers in UNRWA were involved in October 7th, and they provided no evidence for their claims. And the United States led the way in cutting funding to the primary institution that feeds Palestinians. So they've already decided to starve Gaza if they just want to zoom out to protect Zionism. Then I guess they can do it. But it's still so sociopathic, because we played this clip yesterday of Ilan Pappé, who is one of the top Israeli new historians, basically saying that this is the beginning of the end of Zionism as a project. It's a long tunnel, but it's going to be a long process and a bloody one. But that the viability of this project is declining. So I guess, what's your view on them white knuckling it to preserve something that seems to be bleeding out?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, it is a remarkable thing. And to some degree, it's based on the sort of poverty of a larger foreign policy vision. Basically, they can only imagine a Middle East where Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the Egyptian military, and Israel act as a sort of attack dogs of the United States and keep everyone else in line. And a willingness to imagine like a more democratic Middle East means that they will, take these desperate measures. And it is a sign of a very desperate superpower, I would say a rogue superpower that is losing legitimacy. And you only do this kind of extreme thing when you're like, you don't have other tactics of persuasion. And they don't. The world has really turned on this issue. I mean, I agree with it. Like, who would want to be like a Zionist if Zionism means like, you either starve the Palestinians or you starve the rest of the world? Like that's not one would have to be the already like really either indoctrinated or a little bit sick to like adopt that. And I don't think like Zionism is not going to gain new recruits. It is like except among the hard right. I just think I think that the project is in deep trouble. But unfortunately, one of the leading hardcore believers of Zionism and Zionism of a form to the right of the Likud party is Joe Biden.
Yeah. And I just want to clear something up too. There is statutes on the books in this country that address what Blinken is saying. Now, it's shaky. there is one U.S. law that says the United Nations or any specialized agency thereof, which accords the Palestinian Liberation Organization the same standing as member states, that no U.S. funds would be provided for the United Nations in that instance. In 2013, the Palestinian Authority changed the Palestinian UN representation's name from the PLO to the State of Palestine. So it is certainly arguable as to whether that statute applies anymore. There's a separate U.S. statute that prevents the U.S. from funding any UN body that, quote, grants full membership as a state to any organization or group that does not have the internationally recognized attributes of statehood. Now, who is the arbiter of whether somebody has the internationally recognized attributes of statehood? That's where things get a little murky. If the UN says you have statehood, it seems like they have statehood and they have those internationally recognized. So it is quite possible.
Another aspect, which is that traditionally American courts give the presidents huge leeway in terms of like applying laws on foreign policy.
Yes.
And one saw this because it actually is American international law that, you know, the U.S. should not be sending military aid to countries that are committing war crimes like Israel. That is like in law, but the Biden administration decided, well, we're just not going to apply that law. And so any of this stuff, like Blinken is not constrained by law. He could do this and just say we're just not going to follow that statute because this is national security, and the courts will go along with that. That
was largely my point. Is that there exists a statute, but we've seen this many times. Whether it was Nancy Pelosi going on television and saying we can't impeach Donald Trump because then you wouldn't be able to prosecute him after the fact. There is a lot of times you will hear administration officials, you hear lawmakers hide behind an interpretation of what a statute means rather than where it actually stands.
It's proceduralism, like they sort of disguise the proceduralism to hide their actual policy preferences.
Let's just play that clip just so that we have. This is the ICJ president, Nawaf Salam, at the International Court of Justice in The Hague. And maybe you can tell us about The Hague after we hear this, Jeet.
The State of Israel shall, in conformity with its obligation under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, and in view of the worsening conditions of life faced by civilians in the Rafah government, by 13 votes to 2, immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that would bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. In favor, President Salam, Judges Abraham, Yusuf.
Okay, we don't need all that. It was 13-2 on this, basically this restraining order issued against Israel. What The Hague sounds familiar to me, Jeet. What else happened at The Hague?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a sort of the basis for the Nuremberg trials, wasn't it? Like this was like where,
yes,
but not just Nuremberg trial. Like subsequently, it's actually been quite robust in recent decades. As I mentioned, with various war criminals in Africa, like Charles Taylor, but also in the former Yugoslavia. Some of the horrific crimes committed by the Serbia, which amounted to genocide. I mean, people were actually tried and jailed for war crimes through this institution. It's a real thing. I
just want to note there were two judges who voted against this. One was the Israeli judge, and the other was a Ugandan judge. And Uganda, at one point, was found to had committed atrocities under Idi Amin back in the day. And so Uganda has a weird relationship with these courts. I mean, to be honest.
No, absolutely, yeah. And as I said, I mean, like, if you actually want to undermine the courts that have actually held real criminals responsible for real crimes and have jailed them, the best way is to create a double standard, because, like, you know, like the countries all over the world, especially in the global south, will see a double standard. Quite rightly, they will not be wrong in saying that the U.S. wants, you know, like, these courts just to be used against their enemies and not against their allies and against themselves, honestly.
Let's talk a little bit about this as a political matter for Joe Biden and more broadly the state of the race as it is at this point. The Biden administration seems completely convinced that this is not a political liability for them. I think I'm not convinced that they think that, like, they aren't doing the more politically viable thing, frankly, which I think is nuts.
Yep.
Because, I mean, the truth is there's not a huge contingency of people who, frankly, care about this. I mean, foreign policy is just generally not, like, at the top of people's minds. 6 months into the Iraq War, it was hard to find, broad-based interest in what was going on in Iraq as we were killing tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. But give me your sense of, like, where this plays and what the Biden campaign is doing at this point.
Yeah, no. I mean, what you hear from the Biden campaign is, this does not matter. People care about other things. I think it's wrong on a number of grounds. A colleague at The Nation, Josh Cohen, wrote a very good piece about why
and
Biden.
To mention him,
Who's a very good sort of polling and analyst. He's like Nate Silver when Nate Silver was good. He basically, I mean, there's a couple of things at work here. One of which is, as long as foreign policy dominates the news, that's bad for Biden, because he should want the election to be about abortion. He should want the election to be about, pharmacare, about anything other than foreign policy. Just because the Democrats themselves are very opposed to this. Like 75% of Democrats, super majority, are opposed to what Israel is doing in Gaza. So you're alienating your own base by doing this. Now, whether people will, not vote or not, I mean, I think it's more like on the sort of marginal voters who are alienated. But Biden only won 2020 by 45,000 votes in 3 states. It was very close then, and this time he's lagging. So I think it hurts him there. But also, and I can't emphasize this enough, Gaza, for many people, especially young activists, but also young people of color, is not a foreign policy issue. It's a domestic policy issue because it's tied with sort of racism in America. A lot of the people who are active now came out of Black Lives Matter, and they could not help but notice that many police forces all across America were trained by Israelis. Not that American police forces needed to learn to be more racist, but there is this kind of deep connection between white supremacy in the United States and the sort of apartheid regime in Israel.
I think that, to me, is the most compelling argument as to where it impacts this election, because put up this graph about you could do this one. This is a reflection.
Here.
Yeah, there's 2 of them, and they more or less say similar things. One is a sort of a subset of the other. But if you look at this, don't follow political news. You have Trump doing much better with those people who don't follow political news. And then it goes on in terms of what kind of media you take in. YouTube, Trump is killing him. Cable news, Trump is killing him. Social media, it's more or less a wash. Digital websites, it starts becoming more Biden-friendly. National news networks, Biden, and newspapers, much more Biden's crushing him. So what you have is, and that to me looks like college-educated viewers, or readers of newspapers and whatnot. Now put up the Democratic one, and this is the one I think that is really sort of
So that was NBC, and then this came out today. This came out
Times. And the Times, and this is, if you look at this, like, for people who never follow the news, Biden is doing the worst with Democratic leading voters. And the Biden campaign has this idea, and you read that Simon Rosenberg interview.
Yeah, I was going to mention it. Yeah.
Their idea is that once people tune in to the election, and once people get educated, then they'll start to come around for Biden. But the problem is that those people who never follow the news, those people who, those are the people, the way those people get to the polls are by that cohort of people that you just mentioned. It is activists who get those people to the polls ultimately. And those activists in those communities are the people who basically, are the people responsible for engaging those people, because they don't follow. They're not going to watch the news more as they get closer to the presidential election.
Yeah. And we actually have very good evidence from 2020 now that, like, Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd uprising helped Biden, that it got many people more, people who don't follow the news, more politically engaged, and got them in touch with activists. And that actually saved Biden from his own incompetence and the kind of, like, not very good campaign that he ran. And this time around, those Black Lives Matters activists are, like, involved with Gaza protests. And so Biden is trying to alienate the very people that saved him in 2020. I do not think this is a good policy.
No.
And unfortunately, they've created this kind of. You mentioned that New Yorker interview, which we should link to and everyone should read, because it's a top Biden strategy, advisor, big figure in this world. And like Isaac Chortner, as is his wont, asks very basic, good questions, and the guy falls apart and threatens to hang up several times because he cannot answer.
That is one of the most bizarre. I've never met or interviewed Isaac Chotiner, and I don't know if there's some tone to his voice or some frequency that drives the people that he's interviewing completely insane and makes them fall apart. But it is
it's a magic power. He has the
really
voice.
Is astonishing. And I don't know how people ever keep, everybody says this every time, almost like, I don't know, with 50% of the interviews that he comes out, everybody's like, why do people keep going and letting him interview them?
The last one that came out well was a Gaza surgeon, I think.
No, Isaac does also do interviews with people who are doing good work, and those are also very informative interviews. But the best ones are these train wrecks where someone who's in a position of authority basically falls apart. And I have to say, I don't know if you watch Dune or not, but he has the sort of witching voice that you only get from Bene Gesserit training.
Yeah, and now we should also say the strategy seems to be, and I just read a piece, I don't know what it was, in one of the Politico types, or maybe it was Axios or something like that, where the Biden administration is waiting, or the Biden campaign is waiting for the trial to be over, this criminal trial. I think they feel like there's nothing else really going to develop that is going to certainly not require Trump to be there. And they're going to start to focus on Trump. And I think that's why they're doing the debate in June. As a way to make sure that Trump gets out there. So they want to make it a referendum on Trump, which is, it's an idea. It's not a bad idea. But is stuff like that inhibiting, let's say, Dick Durbin? Because I just want to turn to this. Dick Durbin from doing something about Sam Alito. I understand, okay, and you wrote a piece, they can impeach Alito, and they can impeach Clarence Thomas. Now, I don't know if that would happen, but to hold the hearings, to highlight one of the primary reasons why you would want not to have Donald Trump be president, that seems to me like a good idea.
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to hear more of your theories, because I have no idea what they're doing. This is Laura. She's homesick today.
Don't worry about your kid.
No. I would say, okay, first of all, there's a couple of things. One of which is that Democratic politicians are conflict averse, whereas Republican politicians, and Trump is the best example, love conflict. And I think that's rooted very deeply in the nature of the two parties and their alliance systems. The Republicans are a very monolithic group of like angry white people. And so you can, have a leader who's an angry white person appeals to them. The Democrats are a coalition, and the politicians who rise within the Democratic Party are the ones who can build coalition, are consensual, and always with a kind of neoliberals on top, but still like their whole skill is not fighting. And they also are very strong believers in norms. And this is a period where all the norms have kind of broken down, and where if you actually want to, get back to normal, you actually have to take radical steps. So, like to actually, impeach Alito and Thomas, well, they can't really do it right now because they don't have the House. But if they get the House, if they promise, once we get the House, you give us a House majority, we will impeach them. And in impeachment, you just need 50%, right? To remove, you'll need it's impossible. You need 66. But to impeach Alito and Thomas, to have it on the record that they were impeached by Congress for corruption, for being insurrectionists, as I think you could document both of them are, that would be a major thing. It would be a major blow to the legitimacy of the court, and it would really rally Democrats into seeing the courts with these, very far right figures as a real political enemy. But I don't think that they have, their whole instinct is not to pick these fights.
Okay. So and I think if Durbin has the hearings, you don't even call it impeachment. It's just we want to know.
Hearings about democracy.
Yeah.
It's their core branding proposition going into the election. It's a gift.
Well, the other gift, the other thing
abortion
is abortion. And to say hey, we're going to are you just doing the bidding of anti-abortion activists? Or have you found this in the law? Because here we have, Clarence Thomas, who is getting basically, befriended by a billionaire to make sure that his life is content as he sits on the court, without having the big payday that he always dreamt of. And Sam Alito, that's very cute. Sam Alito flying this flag, which, the amazing thing about this with the flag stuff is it is a huge come and get me. I have some pretty, heartfelt positions, political positions. And I don't have a flagpole, I will say. I don't have two flagpoles for that matter. But I suppose the amount of FU that you want to say relative to this guy, is there another single individual outside of these 9 people in this country who probably have more power? Maybe the president, maybe there's someone in Congress, but probably not.
Well, no, because actually,
one of 10, nobody has this level of power to impact the rest of the population. And this guy still has to put up a flag. There's something demented going on with that, but it's also an FU. You can't touch me. And I think Durbin's just afraid to open up this can of worms because it's going to compel him to do what you're saying, which is against his constitution. But I would imagine if the Biden administration wanted him to do it, he would do it. And they must not want him to do it either.
No, Biden doesn't want to do it. And again, I think it's a central contradiction of Biden's politics that he both wants to say, I'm the great fighter for democracy, but also I will return to bipartisan comedy and the old way of Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan, where we all got along and will respect the norms. And those two things are in contradiction. If you actually want to defend democracy, you have to take radical steps. And one saw this, the great American presidents who really saved democracy are Lincoln and FDR, and they did it by actually fighting the courts, and in both cases actually saying that these courts do not represent the people. They are the enemy of democracy. They are upholding, in Lincoln's case, slavery, in FDR's case, standing in the way of economic progress, and actually trying to delegitimize the courts. But to have that sort of action, you need politicians who realize the dire situation and realize we cannot go back to 1975, which is what Joe Biden wants to do, and which is what the Democratic Party elite does, because that was when they were young, they were horny, they were happy, everything was going their way. Like a lot of this is like you have a gerontocracy that wants to go back to the good old days, when everyone was smiling and having beers and having sex all the time, the pleasures of youth.
I honestly think that you can get a tremendous insight into the minds of these people by just watching Jerry Seinfeld and Bill Maher have a conversation.
Yeah, no.
I mean, honestly, they have this exact same sort of politics, vaguely neoliberal, but with some total disregard for any type of changes that have taken place, and all their references are from All in the Family.
No, absolutely. Yeah. The kids today, you can't make Seinfeld today. So, which is
that's right. It would have to be more cutting, be a little bit more cutting and satirical, and
and maybe have a female character, more
and
than
some
one
people of color.
Right,
exactly.
Yeah.
You can't portray New York as exclusively white anymore on TV. It's really a shame. Well, Jeet Heer, always a pleasure. And we're going to talk before we get on that boat together in December.
Yeah.
But,
I think we have to make a list of who gets the lifeboat first. And I will make a strong argument that you should be last.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, depending on what happens, with this election, who knows? Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, well, actually, I don't know if you have time, but I will tell a very dire story, which is that there was a nation cruise in the 2020 election, Bush v. Gore, and it happened
2000 election.
2000 election, and it happened after the courts decided on behalf of Bush, and Ralph Nader was a guest on the cruise. Honestly, on that cruise, you could have actually had people being thrown overboard. It didn't happen, but it
namely Ralph. Namely Ralph.
Yes, namely Ralph. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
There's been some there's a history of. You've got a lot of very opinionated people, and I'm not talking about the people who are, giving the sort of talks in the interview. I'll end up interviewing probably one or two the folks there, but everyone there is very well read and highly opinionated.
It would be like getting the audience of this this show together on a boat to argue it out for 10 days in the sunny Caribbean. It'll be a great adventure.
Exactly.
Thank you for sucking up to our audience too. That's how you can ensure another guest appearance sometime very soon.
Jeet, thanks so much for your time today.
Always a pleasure.
All right, folks, we're going to head into the fun half, wherein we will take your phone calls and go over some of their some clips and people
more.
know and more. Just a reminder. It is your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, you get the fun half. You can I am us in the fun half. Also, check out the AM Quickie. A lot of people have signed up recently for the AM Quickie. 3 days a week. It is free. Really, I mean, I can't speak highly enough of the work that Corey and Jacob are doing. It is increasingly becoming something I increasingly rely on now. I've always read it, but it's I don't know. These guys have really hit their stride. amquickie.com. If you want to help out and support that too, you can get it 5 days a week by signing up as a paid member. But again, it's free 3 days a week. Also, justcoffee.coop. You love coffee. You love co-ops. You love fair trade. You love the Majority Report. You can get all four of those things in a tiny little cup. You can also buy these cups, too, incidentally, at shop.majorityreportradio.com. But at justcoffee.coop, use the coupon code majority, get 10% off, and you can buy the Majority Report blend. Emma.
On ESPN, we talked about the playoffs as they happened, but we also talked about the Harrison Butker thing and his connection to this kind of far-right sect of Catholicism that also Republicans are really obsessed with. We'll be back on Tuesday to give you an update on the NBA and NHL playoffs, youtube.com/ESPN show.
Matt!
Yeah, on Left Reckoning this week, David talked to us about the pardoning of Daniel Perry, which I'm realizing is just Taxi Driver, but Uber driver. Like, I believe Taxi Driver ends with him becoming like a hero, unless that's it's been a while since I saw that movie.
It's almost ironic. Well, basically, he's driven by almost like an incel-like rage, and at the end, he does like shoot up a brothel, even though it's driven by like basically the wrong
But he doesn't face justice.
But he doesn't. He's lauded as a hero.
No, he's lauded as a hero.
Yeah, exactly. So it seems a little bit similar to what's going on, where the Uber driver says, "I'm going to go shoot black people at these BLM protests," and then gets pardoned by the governor of the state. So check that out, patreon.com/leftreckoning. We also talk about Steven Crowder's ICC analysis, which, spoiler alert, it's gay and doesn't matter, but also is a threat to world freedom. So.
I just gotta say, Taxi Driver is really relevant to this day. I mean, that is such a great film, and it has been one of my favorite needle drops in the world, which is "Late for the Sky" by Jackson Browne in that movie. I love Taxi Driver, so anyway, just putting that out there.
All right.
Jackson Browne has good politics too, right? Right?
No idea who Jackson Browne is.
Oh,
You don't know who Jackson Browne is?
I'm not really a music person.
See you in the fun half. 646-257-3920. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, and I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now, and I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now, but I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
hey.
Matt!
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it.
Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello? Is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go throw up.
Libertarians. They're so stupid, though.
Common sense says, of course.
gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering. I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35 501 1/2 3/8
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
654 $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
Call it satire. Sam goes to satire.
On top of it all,
Yeah.
my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you.